Hey, how's it going? Keith Morgan here for TechTyro.com, and today we're going to be taking a look at part 2 of our background tile tutorial. In part 1, we created our tile in Blender, and in this portion of the tutorial, we're going to be stitching the tile together to make an array that you can use as a tiled picture for a background. So let's get started. So as you can see, we have our tile here, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take the crop tool. I'm just going to expand our document just so we have some room to work with. We won't end up needing all this room. In fact, the final image will probably only be about this big, but we just need it so we can work with it. So what this requires is a lot of duplication and movement, and that's about it. It just takes a little bit of time after that. So you can either duplicate your layer by dragging it down to the new layer icon, or you can hit Control-J on the layer, and I'll just duplicate it a few times. And I'll hide the ones we don't need right now. And then with the second one, I'll just move it over a little bit. So, you know, we got a little bit of a gap in there. And then I'll unhide our next one, and I'll do that. And I'll move it so that it has the exact same amount of space between those two tiles that it does here, which looks about that. And then I'll turn on our next layer. Whoops. Turn on the next layer. Move it over here. And we'll turn on our next layer, and we'll move it over here. And we'll turn on our next layer, and we'll move it over there. You just want to get a point to which you can repeat the tile in all directions from any point. Currently we can't do that, as we do not have another bottom segment up here. Or a few top segments up here. So we're just going to duplicate till we can fill in that gap. So we'll just move, duplicate and move that, duplicate and move that. Just hitting Control-J again to duplicate. And we'll just move it into spot. And we'll duplicate one more. And we'll just move that up here. So we'll just zoom out a bit. And what you can do now is with our crop tool again, you can just zoom in here. And now you want to line up your crop tool so that it lines up with the same feature on one side as it does on the next. So say we have that white space in between our tiles here. I went right to the tile's edge here on this end, so that means we have to include the gap with this crop. So that looks about right. And we can always tweak it if we have to. It's always better to have a little bit more than a little bit less. And we'll just move that down to the top edge of that tile. And because we need this bottom tile included, we will crop it to this portion right here. So we'll just move that up. And just to verify, okay, I need to include the tip there as we cropped off the gap there. So we'll just move that down 1 pixel or so. And that should, in theory, work. So if we hit enter, and make sure if you're in CS6, make sure the delete crop pixels is unchecked just in case we need to go back. If you're in CS 5.5 or earlier, you will not have this option. So make a duplicate or back up your layers just in case you need to go back or undo. So we'll leave that unchecked and we'll hit enter or hit this check mark, and that will crop it to that selection. And we're just going to select all our layers, and I'm going to drag them into a new folder. And then I'm going to drag this folder into a new layer to make a copy of that folder. And then I'm going to right-click on the folder and merge the group so that they all become one layer. And now what we can do is we can see if this tiles properly. So with that object, or with that layer selected, we're going to go Filter, Other, and Offset. And what this lets us do is offset the pixels within the document window by however many pixels we choose up here. And if it tiles correctly, you will not see the change in the scene, or you won't see anything out of place. If we need to go back and tweak it, it will stand out severely. So let's just tweak this. And, you know, it seems to be perfectly tileable horizontally. We might need to maybe refine that edge just slightly. But vertically, it seems to be doing it 100% perfectly. And you know, you just have to zoom in so you can really see what you're doing. So we'll cancel that, And we'll go back to our crop tool and we'll just take this one pixel off the right here that's causing us some grief. And that looks about right. We'll hit enter. And we'll just zoom out again. And we'll go back to the offset filter. And we'll just move it horizontally. And that looks about good this time. So what else you can do is put a new layer behind it. And make it black. We'll default colors, take our paint bucket, fill it with black. And now it looks quite nice. So if you were to save this picture out right now, you could use it on your Twitter, you could use it on your YouTube channels, and as so long as you change the tiling to both X and Y on the repeat, you will have a perfectly tiling background for whatever uses you have. You could also use it for your websites. To save it for the web, for the most optimal settings, you can go File, Save for Web. Depending on how much you want to burden people's internets, you want to choose a format that gives it the greatest compression with the most quality preserved. So we'll start with the JPEG. And you know what? At quality 60, it almost looks like there's no difference. If we go to, quality of 80, which is still very high, it's only 30 kilobytes, and it still looks really good. And I can guarantee you it'll still tile perfectly. But it just all depends on what you want. If you're a PNG fan, choose a Ping 8. 64 colors seems to still look good. You got a little bit of aliasing in there, or some dithering, I suppose. But if you up your colors, you don't even see any difference. There's so few colors in this image that you can get away with 128 colors, and it's still only 40 kilobytes. So, you have some options there. Or you can jack it right up to Ping 24, which is just bananas big. But we're gonna stick with JPEG for now at 80 quality, and we'll hit save, and we'll just call it Tileable background, and that saves it out. So I hope you have discovered something new that you might be able to employ on your sites and social networks and all that good stuff. It really sets you apart when you're able to create something that looks good and works, but it still has that custom flair that we're always searching for. So I'm really happy that I was able to give you the opportunity to learn how to make your own custom backgrounds, and look forward to seeing some of your results in the future. So for Tech Tyro, this is Keith Morgan signing off.